I used to believe that loyalty was a shield.
Numbers
I
don't
believed if I
lie.
showed up
You
every
need to
day,
act
kept my head
now.
down, and did my
I've
job right,
reviewed the
nothing bad could touch
reports.
me.
The
That belief
risks are
kept me
too
calm
high.
for 15 years. It helped me sleep at night. It helped me ignore the quiet fear that lived in the back of my mind. The fear that one day, everything I built could disappear in a single moment. I didn't know how right that fear was. I didn't know how fast life could flip the script. And I definitely didn't know it would happen in a conference room with glass walls and fake smiles. I'm not telling this story because I'm angry. I'm telling it because I finally understand something I didn't back then. Something about work, something about family, and something about myself. This is the story of how I gave my best years to a company, and how one meeting ended it all. For most of my life, I wasn't chasing dreams. I was chasing stability. I grew up watching my father work himself into the ground. He never complained, never asked for praise. He believed a man's worth came from providing. Food on the table, lights on, rent paid on time. That mindset became my foundation. I didn't want to be rich. I just wanted to be reliable. When I got hired at the company, I was 26, newly married. My wife was pregnant with our first child. I still remember the smell of the office carpet that first day. Cheap coffee, printer ink, hope. That's what it smelled like to me, hope. I told myself, this is it. This is where I build my life. And I did. Year after year, I showed up early. I stayed late. I missed birthdays. I missed family dinners. I missed weekends. Not because anyone forced me to, but because I believed sacrifice meant security. My boss noticed. Then his boss noticed. Promotions came slowly, but they came. Raises weren't huge, but they felt earned. Every performance review said the same thing. Reliable. Consistent. Team player. Those words meant everything to me. They felt like proof that I mattered. That I belonged. At home, life was moving fast. 2 kids. A mortgage. Bills that never stopped coming. My wife trusted me to keep us safe. My kids saw me as steady. I was the guy who always had it handled. Or at least, that's what I wanted them to believe. Inside, I was tired. Bone tired. But I kept going. 15 years went by like that. 15 years of meetings. Deadlines. Emails sent late at night. I trained new hires who later became my supervisors. I smiled through it. I told myself titles didn't matter. Loyalty did. Then came the year everything changed. It started quietly. New leadership. New buzzwords. Restructuring. Efficiency. Streamlining. Words that sound clean but feel cold. People started disappearing. Desks empty one day, gone the next. No goodbye emails. No explanations. Just silence. I wasn't scared at first. I told myself, I'm safe. 15 years buys you safety, right? I knew the systems. I knew the clients. I knew where the bodies were buried, so to speak. I thought that made me untouchable. Then I got the calendar invite. Mandatory meeting. HR included. No agenda. That's when the fear hit. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a slow, sinking feeling in my chest. Like something heavy pressing down. I didn't tell my wife. Didn't want to worry her. I told myself it was nothing. Just another meeting. The morning of that meeting, I woke up early. Too early. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. My wife was still asleep. The house was quiet. I remember thinking how peaceful it looked. How fragile that peace really was. At work, everything felt normal. Too normal. People joked. Coffee machines hummed. Emails kept coming in. No one looked at me differently. That almost made it worse. When I walked into the conference room, I already knew. You feel it in your gut before your brain catches up. My manager wouldn't meet my eyes. HR smiled like they were practicing. There was a folder on the table with my name on it. They talked for a long time. About changes. About direction. About how hard this was for them. I barely heard any of it. My ears were ringing. My heart was pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. Then the words landed. We're going to have to let you go. Just like that. 15 years reduced to one sentence. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just nodded. I shook hands. I signed papers. I thanked them. Yeah, I thanked them. When I walked out with a cardboard box in my arms, the office felt smaller. Colder. Like I had never really belonged there at all. That night, I sat in my car for a long time before going inside. I didn't know how to explain to my family that the ground under us had cracked. I didn't know how to admit that loyalty wasn't enough. That safety was an illusion. And that was only the beginning. I finally opened the car door when the sun started going down. I had been sitting there for almost an hour, staring at the steering wheel like it might give me answers. My hands were still shaking. Not from anger. From fear. The quiet kind that makes your chest feel tight and your throat dry. I kept thinking about the box in the back seat. 15 years of my life packed into a cardboard box. A company mug. A framed certificate. A stress ball shaped like the company logo. Stuff that once made me feel proud. Now it just felt heavy. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every red light felt personal. Every slow car in front of me felt like the universe messing with me. I turned the radio off because I couldn't stand the noise. I needed silence. I needed time. But time didn't slow down for me. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw the lights on inside the house. That warm yellow glow. The kind that always made me feel safe. That night, it made my stomach drop. Because I knew I was about to walk inside and change everything. I sat there again, hands on the wheel, taking deep breaths like I was about to dive underwater. I kept thinking, how do I say this? There's no soft way to tell your family that the ground under them just cracked. There's no calm way to say, I failed. When I opened the door, my kids were in the living room. My son was on the floor with his toys. My daughter was on the couch, scrolling on her phone. They looked up and smiled when they saw me. That smile almost broke me. My wife came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She smiled too. That normal, tired smile she always gave me at the end of the day. How was work? She asked. That question hit harder than the meeting, because I didn't know how to answer it. I didn't want to ruin the moment. Didn't want to scare anyone. So I said the dumbest thing I could have said. It was long. She noticed the box right away. Her smile faded, just a little. What's that? She asked. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. I got laid off, I said. The room went quiet. Not dramatic quiet. Just still, like everyone stopped breathing at the same time. My wife didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, like she was waiting for me to laugh and say it was a joke. The kids looked confused. They didn't understand yet. They just felt the change in the air. Are you serious? She finally asked. I nodded. That meeting today, it was my last day. She sat down slowly on the couch, put the towel beside her. Her face went pale. Not angry, just shocked. What about the bills? She asked quietly. What about the mortgage? I didn't have answers. And that scared me more than losing the job. I got severance, I said. It's not much, but for how long? She asked. I shrugged. I don't know. The kids were still watching us. My son stood up and walked over to me. Dad, are you okay? He asked. That question almost took me out. I bent down and hugged him. Yeah, buddy, I said. I'm okay. But I wasn't. Not even close. That night, we ate dinner quietly. No TV. No jokes. Just the sound of forks on plates. My wife barely touched her food. The kids felt it too. They didn't talk much. After we put them to bed, my wife and I sat at the kitchen table. The same table where we'd planned birthdays. Talked about vacations. Paid bills. Now it felt like a courtroom. What are we going to do? She asked. I looked down at my hands. Hands that had typed emails, filled spreadsheets, shaken hands. Hands that suddenly felt useless. I'll find something, I said. I always do. She nodded, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She tried to hide it. She always did. But I knew her too well. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to my wife breathe beside me. Every sound in the house felt louder. Every thought felt heavier. I started replaying everything. The missed dinners. The late nights. The times I chose work over family because I believed it mattered. Because I believed loyalty would protect me. Now I felt stupid. Naive. Like I had bet my life on the wrong thing. The next morning, I woke up early out of habit. Put on my work clothes before realizing I didn't need them anymore. That hit me harder than I expected. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. Updated my resume. Sent out applications. One after another. Trying to stay calm. Trying to stay hopeful. Days passed. Then weeks. Rejection emails started coming in. Some polite. Some cold. Some didn't respond at all. Every rejection chipped away at me. I started doubting myself. 15 years, and suddenly I felt invisible. Outdated. Replaceable. My wife went back to work full-time. She didn't complain, but I saw the exhaustion on her face. I saw the way she tried to stay strong for me. That hurt more than anything. Money got tight. We stopped eating out. Canceled subscriptions. Put off repairs around the house. Small sacrifices at first, then bigger ones. Family started asking questions. My parents. Her parents. Friends. Everyone had advice. Just keep trying. Something will come. You'll be fine. But none of them saw the nights I sat alone, staring at job boards. None of them felt the weight on my chest when I thought about failing my kids. I started feeling ashamed. Ashamed to talk. Ashamed to ask for help. Ashamed to admit I was scared. I stopped answering calls. Stopped meeting friends. I told myself I was busy. The truth was, I didn't want anyone to see me like this. Broken. Lost. One night, my wife sat next to me on the couch. She took my hand. "You don't have to go through this alone," she said. I wanted to believe her. But part of me felt like this was my burden. My failure. My mess to clean up. That's when the real cracks started forming. Not just in my career, but in my identity. Because when the job disappeared, so did the man I thought I was. And I didn't realize yet that this loss was only setting me up for something even worse. The hardest part about losing my job wasn't the money. It wasn't even the fear. It was the silence. The long hours during the day when the house felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel small, useless, like the world is moving forward without you. Every morning, I still woke up early. My body didn't know how to sleep in. I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold before I finished it. The kids would get ready for school. My wife would rush out the door for work. And I'd stand there, watching them leave, pretending everything was normal. Once the door closed, the weight hit me. I was alone with my thoughts. And my thoughts were not kind. I applied for jobs like it was a full-time job itself. Resume after resume. Cover letters that all started to sound the same. I am a dedicated professional. I bring years of experience. I am excited for this opportunity. I typed those words over and over until they stopped feeling real. Interviews came slowly. Some went okay. Some fell off from the start. I could see it in their eyes sometimes. That look that said, "You're good, but not what we're looking for." After each interview, I came home and told my wife it went fine. That word became my shield. Fine meant I didn't have to explain the doubt. Fine meant I didn't have to admit how scared I was. At night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. The same ceiling. The same shadows. But I wasn't the same man anymore. I started snapping over small things. The kids being loud. A bill arriving in the mail. The car making a weird noise. Things that never bothered me before suddenly felt huge. One night, my daughter asked if she could still go on a school trip. It wasn't expensive, but my chest tightened anyway. I said, "We'll see." She nodded, but I saw the disappointment on her face. That stayed with me. I hated myself for that moment. Hated what I was becoming. A man counting pennies. A man afraid of simple questions. My wife tried to stay positive. She really did. She told me we'd get through it. She reminded me of everything I'd handled before. But the stress was getting to her too. We argued more. Not loud fights. Quiet ones. The kind that hurt worse. "You've been distant," she said one night. "I'm just tired," I replied. "You don't talk anymore." "I don't have much to say." That was the truth. I didn't know how to talk without admitting I felt like I was failing. Then came the phone call from my brother. He'd always been the successful one. Flashy job. Nice car. Confident smile. The kind of guy people listened to. He said he heard I was out of work. His voice had that tone. Not cruel. Just knowing. "You ever think about switching fields?" he asked. I laughed, but it came out wrong. "I've spent my whole life in this one." "Yeah, well," he said, "sometimes loyalty doesn't pay." That line stuck with me. It felt like a punch. Because it was true. Family gatherings became awkward. People asked polite questions. I gave polite answers. Nobody pushed too hard. But I could feel the judgment. Or maybe I was just imagining it. One afternoon, I ran into an old coworker at the grocery store. He was still at the company. Got promoted after I left. "How's retirement?" he joked. I smiled. Played along. But inside, something cracked. When I got home, I sat in the garage for a long time. Didn't even turn the car off. I just sat there, listening to the engine hum, feeling like I didn't recognize my own life anymore. That night, my wife and I had our first real fight since everything started. It was about money. It always is. She said we needed to talk about cutting back more. About selling the car. About dipping into savings. I snapped. "I know," I said too sharply. "I'm not stupid." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't say you were." Silence followed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "I just need you to be here," she said quietly. "I feel like I'm carrying this alone." That hurt more than any rejection email. Because she was right. I'd been so wrapped up in my own shame that I forgot she was scared too. That night, I apologized. But apologies don't erase fear. They just sit next to it. Weeks turned into months. The severance ran out. Savings got thinner. Pressure grew. Then something happened that changed how I saw everything. I got a call for a job I really wanted. Good pay, good role. Felt like a second chance. The interview went great. They liked me. They said it directly. We'll be in touch, they said. I walked out feeling lighter than I had in months. I told my wife that night. For the first time in a long time, we smiled together. Days passed. No call. Then an email came. Short. Polite. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. I stared at that screen until my eyes burned. That night, I broke. I sat alone in the dark living room after everyone went to bed. No lights. No noise. Just me and the truth. I wasn't okay. I wasn't strong. I was tired of pretending. I realized something in that moment. I had tied my entire identity to being useful to others, to a company, to a role. And when that disappeared, so did my sense of worth. That scared me more than being broke. Because if I wasn't my job, who was I? I didn't know yet that this question would lead me somewhere painful, somewhere I never expected. And I didn't know that the next betrayal wouldn't come from work, but from someone much closer. I used to believe family was the one place where you didn't have to prove your worth, where you could show up tired, scared, broken, and still be accepted. Losing my job taught me how fragile that belief really was. It didn't happen all at once. It started slowly. Small comments, side looks, questions that sounded innocent but felt sharp underneath. It began with my parents. They invited us over for dinner one Sunday night. Nothing special, just a family meal. I almost didn't go. Something in my gut told me to stay home. But my wife said it would be good for us. A distraction. The house smelled the same as always. Fried food, old furniture, comfort. My mom hugged me a little longer than usual. My dad shook my hand and nodded. Didn't say much. Dinner was quiet at first. Talk about the kids. Weather. Random stuff. Then my dad cleared his throat. So, he said, not looking at me. Any luck yet? I felt my shoulders tense. I'm still applying, I said. Got a few interviews. He nodded slowly. You know, he said, when I was your age, I never went a day without work. That wasn't new. He'd said things like that my whole life. But this time, it landed different. I'm trying, I said. I'm just saying, he continued. Sometimes you can't wait for the perfect thing. My mom jumped in. He just means maybe you should take anything for now. Anything. That word stuck in my chest. I will, I said quietly. The rest of dinner felt awkward. I could feel eyes on me. Not angry, just measuring. Like I was being evaluated. On the drive home, my wife didn't say much. Neither did I. A few days later, my brother called again. He said he had an idea. A temporary solution. He knew a guy who needed help at a warehouse. Manual labor. Long hours. Low pay. I know it's not your thing, he said. But money is money. I thanked him. Said I'd think about it. After we hung up, I sat there staring at my phone. I wasn't too proud to work. I never was. But something about that conversation made me feel small. Like all those years of experience meant nothing now. When I told my wife, she hesitated. Maybe you should take it, she said gently. At least until something else comes along. I nodded. But inside, something broke. I started the warehouse job the next week. It was hard. Physically exhausting. I came home sore, dirty, and drained. My body ached in places I didn't know could ache. The guys there were rough. Not mean. Just worn down. Most of them had stories. Layoffs. Divorces. Bad luck. I fit right in. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise. Every night, I collapsed into bed. The pay barely covered groceries. But it was something. Still, the shame didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. I avoided telling people where I worked. I avoided questions. I avoided mirrors. One evening, my wife's sister came over. She'd always been outspoken. Blunt. She watched me rub my sore back and said, "So this is what you're doing now?" I smiled weakly. Just for now. She raised her eyebrows. 15 years in an office, and this is where you end up? My wife shot her a look. That's enough, she said. But the damage was done. Later that night, my wife apologized for her sister. I told her it was fine. But it wasn't. I felt judged everywhere I went. At family dinners. At school events. Even at home sometimes. Not because my wife blamed me. She didn't. But because I blamed myself. I started pulling away more. Talking less. Smiling less. One night, my son asked me why I didn't wear nice clothes to work anymore. I laughed it off. But after he went to bed, I sat alone in the dark again. I realized something painful. People don't just love you for who you are. They love you for what you represent. Stability. security, success. When that disappears, so does their confidence in you. The final blow came during a family gathering. Everyone was there. Uncles, aunts, cousins. Laughter filled the room. Someone asked what everyone was up to. Jobs, promotions, plans. When it got to me, the room went quiet. I'm working at a warehouse right now, I said. There was an awkward pause. Then someone laughed. Not cruel, but surprised. Well, my uncle said, life humbles us all. That word, humbles. I nodded, forced a smile, excused myself to the bathroom. I locked the door and leaned against it. My chest felt tight. My hands were shaking. I wasn't angry. I was embarrassed. That night, I told my wife I didn't want to go to family events anymore. She looked sad, but she understood. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, she said. I wanted to believe her, but proving myself was all I knew how to do. What hurt the most wasn't the job, or the money, or the judgment. It was realizing how quickly respect fades when you stop being useful. I started questioning everything. My choices, my sacrifices, my loyalty. And deep down, a dark thought began to grow. What if I had given my best years away, only to end up like this? I didn't know yet that the worst moment wasn't behind me. It was coming, and it would force me to confront a truth I'd been running from my whole life. There's a moment when pain stops being loud, when it doesn't scream anymore. It just sits there, quiet, heavy, waiting. That's where I was. The warehouse job drained me in ways I didn't expect. Not just physically, emotionally, mentally. Every day felt like proof that I had fallen. Every shift reminded me of what I used to be. I stopped checking job boards as often. Not because I gave up, but because hope started to hurt. Every time I believed something might change, it didn't. And disappointment piled up fast. My wife noticed before I did. You don't laugh anymore, she said one night. I shrugged. Just tired. You're always tired. She wasn't accusing me. She was worried. I didn't know how to explain what was happening inside me. How do you explain feeling invisible in your own life? How do you explain waking up every day feeling like you're failing everyone who depends on you? The kids felt it too. They became quieter around me, more careful, like they didn't want to upset me. That broke my heart. One night, my son brought home a paper from school. Career day. Parents were invited to talk about their jobs. Can you come, Dad? He asked. I froze. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to explain why the idea scared me. Let me see if I can, I said. He nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. I saw it anyway. That night, I stared at the ceiling again. The same ceiling. The same shadows. But now there was something else. Guilt. I felt like I was letting everyone down. Not because I lost my job, but because I was losing myself. The breaking point came on a random Tuesday. I came home from work exhausted. My shirt soaked with sweat. My hands shaking from overuse. I walked into the kitchen and saw my wife at the table, bills spread out in front of her. She looked up. Her eyes were red. We're late on the mortgage, she said quietly. My chest tightened. I'll pick up extra shifts, I said quickly. She shook her head. That's not the point. Then what is? I snapped. She flinched. That look on her face stopped me cold. I miss you, she said. I miss my husband. That hurt more than anything she could have said. I'm right here, I said. No, she replied. You're not. Something inside me cracked. I'm doing everything I can, I said. My voice was shaking now. I don't know what else you want from me. She stood up slowly. I want you to talk to me, she said. I want you to let me in. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I walked out of the house. Didn't grab my keys. Didn't say where I was going. I just walked. The air was cold. The street lights buzzed softly. I walked until my legs hurt. I ended up at a park near our house. Sat on a bench and stared at the empty playground. That's when it hit me. I started crying. Not the quiet kind. The kind that shakes your whole body. The kind you can't control. I cried for the job I lost. For the man I used to be. For the family I was afraid of failing. For all the years I gave away believing loyalty was enough. I cried because I was tired of being strong. Tired of pretending I had it under control. I don't know how long I sat there. But eventually my phone buzzed. It was my wife. Please come home, she said. Her voice cracked. I'm scared, I admitted. I know, she said. So am I. That was the first honest thing I'd said in months. When I got home, we sat on the couch in silence. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. We're a team, she said. We always have been. I nodded. But part of me didn't believe it anymore. Not because of her. Because of me. That night, I realized something painful. I had built my entire sense of worth on being needed. By my job, by my role, by everyone else. And when that was gone, I didn't know how to exist. I didn't realize yet that this breakdown was necessary. That sometimes life strips you down so you can finally see yourself clearly. But at that moment, all I felt was fear. Fear that I was losing my family. Fear that I was losing myself. Fear that this was as good as it was ever going to get. I went to bed that night knowing one thing for sure. Something had to change. Because if it didn't, I wouldn't survive like this much longer. The morning after I broke down at the park, I woke up feeling different. Not better, just clearer. Like the fog inside my head had thinned enough for me to see the mess I was standing in. My body still hurt. My problems were still there. The bills didn't magically disappear. But something shifted. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up thinking about work, or money, or failure. I woke up thinking about myself. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. The tired eyes, the slumped shoulders, the way I avoided my own reflection. I realized I had been hiding, not just from people, from myself. I had blamed the company, the economy, bad timing, and sure, those things played a part. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had given my entire identity away, handed it to a job that never promised to protect me. I had measured my worth in paychecks and titles, and when those disappeared, I had nothing left to stand on. That realization hurt, but it also gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. That morning, I told my wife I needed to talk. She looked nervous. I didn't blame her. The past few months hadn't been easy on either of us. I don't want to keep living like this, I said. I don't want to keep pretending I'm fine when I'm not. She listened, didn't interrupt, didn't judge. I need help, I said. Saying those words felt like swallowing glass, but also like breathing fresh air. She reached for my hand. I've been waiting for you to say that, she replied. That day, I made a decision I had been avoiding. I called a therapist. It wasn't something I ever imagined doing. In my family, you dealt with things on your own. You didn't talk about feelings. You pushed through. But pushing through is what got me here. The first session was awkward. I didn't know where to start. So I told him everything. The job, the shame, the fear, the way I felt invisible. He listened quietly. Then he said something that stuck with me. You didn't lose your worth when you lost your job, he said. You just lost the place where you were borrowing it from. That hit hard. Over the next few weeks, I started unpacking things I'd buried for years. Why I tied my value to being needed. Why I feared being seen as weak. Why failure felt like death. At the same time, I made another hard choice. I quit the warehouse job. Not because I was too good for it, but because it was breaking me. Physically and emotionally. The decision scared me. We needed the money. But I also knew that if I kept going like that, I'd lose more than a paycheck. My wife supported me. Not blindly, but honestly. We'll figure it out, she said. Together, I started doing something I hadn't done in years. I slowed down. I spent more time with my kids. Helped with homework. Went on walks. Listened. One afternoon, my son asked again about career day. Do you want me to come now? He asked carefully. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't have a fancy job to talk about, I said. He shrugged. That's okay. You're my dad. That simple sentence hit me harder than any insult ever could. I went. I stood in front of a classroom full of kids and talked about life instead of work. About learning. About trying again when things don't go your way. I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt proud. Slowly, I started rebuilding. Not my career yet. My confidence. I reached out to people I'd avoided. Old coworkers. Friends. Even my brother. Some conversations were awkward. Some were healing. My brother apologized. He said he didn't realize how his words came across. I told him it was okay. But inside, I made a promise to myself. I would never measure my worth by someone else's standards again. Then, something unexpected happened. A former coworker reached out. Not with a job offer. With a question. Have you ever thought about consulting? He asked. I laughed at first. Me? Consulting? But the idea stuck. I started researching, learning, reaching out. It wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But it felt right. For the first time since losing my job, I felt like I was building something instead of begging for it. The fear didn't disappear. But it changed. It wasn't fear of failure anymore. It was fear of staying stuck. And that fear pushed me forward. I didn't know yet where this path would lead. I didn't know if it would work. But I finally understood something important. Losing my job didn't break me. Clinging to who I used to be almost did. the man I was becoming. He wasn't defined by a company, or a title, or a paycheck. He was defined by how he stood back up. And the real test of that strength was still ahead of me. The house was full again, not with laughter, not with warmth, with tension so thick it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I stood in the living room I had paid for, every tile, every window, every repair done with years of overtime, missed dreams, and silent sacrifices. The same living room where I had once watched my children take their first steps, where birthdays had been celebrated, where promises had been made. Now, it felt like a courtroom. Everyone was there. My wife sat stiffly on the couch, hands folded, eyes avoiding mine like guilt had weight. My eldest son leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight, defensive before a single word had even been spoken. My daughter sat beside her mother, phone in hand, pretending not to care while listening to every breath I took. And then there was him, the same son who had called me ungrateful, the same voice that had told me, "You didn't do anything special," the same person who had walked away like my life had been a bad investment. He didn't look at me. That hurt more than if he had shouted. I cleared my throat, not because I was nervous, but because I was tired of swallowing everything. "I didn't call you all here to argue," I said slowly. "I called you because I'm done being silent." No one interrupted. That was new. "For years," I continued, "I've been treated like the past, like something useful that already served its purpose." My wife shifted uncomfortably. "I gave up my future so you could all have yours," I said. "And somehow, that became something you resent." My eldest son scoffed quietly. "Here we go again." I turned toward him. "No," I said calmly. "This time, you listen." The room froze. "I worked jobs that broke my body," I said. "I stayed in positions I hated because stability mattered more than happiness. I buried dreams because groceries were more important than passion." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. And when I finally needed respect, I said, "You called me ungrateful." That's when my wife finally spoke. "You didn't have to sacrifice everything," she said softly. "That was your choice." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Funny," I replied. "Because when I wanted to leave that job, you said, 'What about the kids?' When I wanted to take a risk, you said, 'Be realistic.' When I talked about dreams, you called them distractions." Silence answered me. "I didn't choose sacrifice," I said. "I was trained into it." My daughter rolled her eyes. "So now you're blaming us?" "No," I said. "I'm explaining why I'm done." That caught their attention. My youngest son finally looked at me. "What does that even mean?" "It means," I said, walking to the center of the room, "that the version of me who existed only to serve is gone." My wife's voice cracked. "You're being dramatic." I laughed quietly. "No," I said. "I'm being honest, for the first time in decades." I pulled a folder from my bag and placed it on the table. Inside were documents, bank statements, property papers, medical reports they had never bothered to read. "I've been sick," I said. My daughter looked up sharply. "What?" "Nothing dramatic," I added. "Just enough to remind me that time doesn't wait for gratitude." My wife's face drained of color. "Why didn't you tell us?" I met her eyes. "Because every time I tried to talk about myself," I said, "I was told I was making things about me." No one argued. "I realized something lying in that hospital bed," I continued. "If I died tomorrow, you'd cry, but your lives wouldn't change." That landed hard. "You'd still live in this house," I said. "Still use the things I paid for. Still benefit from a life you never thanked." My eldest son pushed off the wall. "That's not fair." "Neither was my life," I replied. I took a breath. "So here's the truth you've avoided," I said. "I didn't fail as a father. I succeeded so well that you forgot I was human." The room felt smaller. "I won't beg for respect anymore," I said. "I won't explain my worth. And I won't fund indifference." My wife stood up. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I replied, "that everything changes today." I turned toward my son, the one who had called me ungrateful. "You wanted independence," I said. "You have it." His confidence faltered. "You wanted to be free of my control," I continued. "Congratulations." "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm letting go," I said. "Of expectations, of guilt, of the lie that love means self-erasure." My daughter whispered, "You're scaring me." "I know," I said gently. "That's what honesty feels like when you're used to comfort." I picked up my bag. "I loved you enough to disappear for you," I said. "Now I'm choosing to exist for myself." I paused at the door. This isn't punishment, I added. It's consequence. And then I walked out. Not in anger, not in hatred, but in freedom I had waited a lifetime to claim. The door didn't slam when I left. That was the strange part. I had expected anger to follow me, shouting, accusations, maybe even threats. Instead, there was only the quiet click of the lock behind me, soft and final, like a period at the end of a sentence no one had finished reading. Outside, the night air felt colder than it should have. Or maybe my body was just no longer used to feeling anything without filtering it through responsibility. For the first time in decades, no one was waiting for me to fix something. No leaking pipe, no overdue bill, no emotional mess disguised as family matters. I sat in my car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the house I had built and slowly disappeared inside. Inside that house, panic didn't arrive immediately. At first, there was confusion. The house without a backbone. My wife stood frozen in the living room long after I left. The words I'd spoken replayed in her mind, not as accusations, but as receipts. You forgot I was human. She sat back down slowly, her heart pounding. He'll cool off, she said, more to herself than anyone else. My eldest son nodded quickly. Yeah, he always does. That sentence, he always does, hung in the air longer than it should have. My daughter glanced toward the door. He didn't sound like he was cooling off. He's emotional, my son replied. He'll be back. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Because something had been different this time. I hadn't argued. I hadn't defended myself. I hadn't begged. I had ended something. Day one, denial. The next morning, the house ran on habit. My wife woke early, expecting to hear movement in the kitchen, expecting the quiet routine she had grown used to but never acknowledged. Nothing. The coffee machine sat untouched. She checked the time. Then her phone. No message. That's odd, she murmured. By noon, irritation replaced concern. He's being dramatic, she told herself. Trying to make a point. She ordered takeout instead of cooking. The kids ate without comment. But the silence tasted different. Day 3. Inconvenience. The first real crack appeared when the electricity bill arrived. My daughter handed it to her mother. Isn't this higher than usual? My wife frowned. That can't be right. She searched for the folder, the one I always kept organized, labeled, updated. It wasn't there. She checked the drawer, then the cabinet, then the bedroom. Nothing. Her chest tightened. He must have taken it by accident, she said. But deep down, she knew better. I never did anything by accident. Day 5. Realization. The bank called. The tone was polite, professional, unbothered. But the message was clear. Certain automatic payments had been changed. Access permissions had been updated. My wife sat on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear, her mind racing. What do you mean the account is now limited? She asked. I'm sorry, ma'am, the agent replied. The primary account holder made those changes. Primary account holder. The phrase echoed. For years, she had lived as if security was shared. She was learning it had been borrowed. The son who never thought he'd lose. My eldest son felt it differently. At first, he was angry. He's trying to control us, he said. This is emotional manipulation. But control requires presence. And I was gone. When his car insurance lapsed because the payment didn't go through, panic replaced arrogance. He called my phone. Straight to voicemail. He texted, Dad, this isn't funny. No response. He sent another. We need to talk. Silence. That's when the fear started whispering. What if he meant it? The daughter who saw too late. My daughter noticed the smallest things first. The trash piling up. The quiet mornings. The way her mother stared at walls like they had answers. One night, she opened her laptop to apply for a program she had been postponing, one I had promised to help fund. The deadline was close. She checked the save document. My name was listed as the financial sponsor. Her stomach dropped. She whispered, "Oh no." For the first time, she understood that my absence wasn't symbolic. It was structural. The call that never came. They expected me to call, to soften, to explain, to apologize for finally choosing myself. Days passed, then a week, then 2. Inside the small apartment I had rented quietly, I slept better than I had in years. Not because I was happy, but because I wasn't invisible. I ate when I wanted, woke when my body allowed, sat in silence without being accused of neglect. For the first time, my exhaustion didn't need justification. The truth nobody wanted. Back at the house, the argument exploded. This is your fault, My son snapped at his mother. You pushed him too far. She shot back. Don't blame me. You treated him like an ATM. My daughter shouted. Both of you did. The words hit harder than any slap. You never listened to him, she continued. You just assumed he'd always be there. Silence followed. The kind that exposes guilt. The question that changed everything. That night, my wife sat alone and finally asked the question she had avoided for decades. Who was I married to, if not the provider? She realized she couldn't answer, and that terrified her more than my absence ever could. They didn't come together. That tells you everything. My daughter came first. I was sitting by the window in my small apartment when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. I stared at it for a long time before answering. Not because I didn't want to talk to her, but because I needed to know if I was strong enough to hear her voice without folding back into the man I used to be. Dad, she said softly. Her voice cracked on the first word. That alone almost broke me. I just wanted to check on you, she said. I wasn't sure if you were okay. I looked out at the street below. Cars passed. People laughed. Life moved like it always does, even when yours feels paused. I'm okay, I said. I really am. There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, We're not. I didn't respond, because this wasn't about fixing anymore. It was about listening. She spoke slowly, like she was choosing each word carefully. Everything feels shaky. Mom's scared. My brother's angry. And I keep thinking about things I never noticed before. Like what? I asked. Like how tired you always looked, she said. Like how you never bought anything for yourself. Like how you always said yes, even when it hurt. Her breath caught. I thought that's what dads do. I closed my eyes. So did I said. She started crying then. Quiet crying. The kind that doesn't ask for comfort, only forgiveness. I'm sorry, she said. I should have seen you. I swallowed hard. Seeing me now matters, I said. But you need to understand something. What? I didn't leave because I stopped loving you, I said. I left because I stopped loving myself. She didn't argue. She didn't defend. She just listened. That's how I knew she was growing. My son came next. He didn't call. He showed up. I opened the door and saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, jaw tight. He looked older, or maybe just less protected. So this is it, he said. You just disappear? I stepped aside and let him in. This is me choosing peace, I said. He scoffed. By blowing everything up? I nodded. Sometimes that's the only way to stop being buried. He paced the room like a trapped animal. You made things hard for us, he said. You could have talked. I looked at him calmly. I talked for 15 years, I said. You just didn't hear me. That stopped him. He opened his mouth, closed it, then sat down heavily. They're saying I need to step up now, he muttered. Bills. Responsibilities. Stuff I never had to worry about. I raised an eyebrow. Welcome to adulthood. He looked at me then. Really looked. You always made it look easy, he said. It wasn't, I replied. It was just lonely. His shoulders dropped. I didn't know, he said. That's the problem, I said gently. You never asked. He nodded slowly. I was wrong about you, he admitted. I didn't say anything. Because sometimes silence is the apology. My wife came last. 3 days later. She stood in the doorway like a stranger, holding her purse too tightly. Her eyes were tired. Red. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit. Just stood there, looking around. This place is simple, she said. I smiled faintly. So am I now. She took a breath. I didn't realize how much I leaned on you, she said. I thought we were a team. We were, I said, until I became the only one carrying it. She nodded, tears forming. I see that now. I waited. She wiped her eyes. I don't know who I am without you fixing things. That was the most honest thing she'd said in years. I'm not here to be fixed, I said. And neither are you. She looked at me, scared. So what happens now? I thought about that. Now, I said slowly, we learn how to stand without leaning on someone else's back. She reached out, then stopped. I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed her. But apologies don't rewind time. They only opened doors. When they left, the apartment felt quiet again. But it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. This one didn't hurt. This one felt earned. I sat down and thought about everything I had lost. And everything I had finally gained. Here's the truth I wish someone had told me years ago. Loyalty without boundaries is self-betrayal. Love without respect becomes obligation. And silence, when it lasts too long, teaches people how to live without hearing you. If you give your whole life to something, family, work, love, and it never sees you. That doesn't make you noble. It makes you invisible, and no one deserves to disappear just to keep others comfortable. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was waking up and realizing no one was waiting for me to carry them through the day. No calls. No problems dressed up as emergencies. No quiet pressure sitting on my chest before my feet even touched the floor. Just mourning. Just me. At first, that freedom felt strange. Almost wrong. Like I had skipped a step or forgotten something important. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, expecting messages that never came. Years of being needed had wired my body to stay alert. Still, useful, ready. Without that, I didn't know what to do with my hands. The silence after service. I made coffee slowly, not because I had time, but because I didn't know how to rush anymore. I sat at the small table and watched steam rise from the cup. That simple moment felt heavier than any meeting I had ever sat through. For so long, my value had been measured by how much I could handle. Bills paid, problems solved, emotions managed. Now there was no scoreboard, and without one, I felt invisible again, but in a different way. This invisibility wasn't forced. I chose it. The guilt that followed me. Guilt doesn't disappear just because you walk away. It follows you quietly, whispering questions you can't shut off. Are they okay without you? Did you abandon them? Were you selfish? I carried those thoughts like loose change in my pockets, clinking every time I moved. One afternoon, I ran into an old coworker at the grocery store. He smiled when he saw me. "Man, you look lighter," he said. I laughed softly. "I feel lost." He nodded. "Same thing sometimes." That stuck with me. Maybe feeling lost was part of shedding weight I was never meant to carry. Learning who I was without a role. At work, I had been the reliable one. At home, the provider. In conflict, the fixer. But who was I without a label? That question scared me more than any argument ever had. I started taking walks in the evening. No destination. No reason. Just movement. I noticed things I hadn't before. Kids laughing. Dogs pulling at leashes. Couples arguing over nothing important. Life was messy everywhere. Not just in my house. And for the first time, I realized something that hurt and healed at the same time. I wasn't the only one holding things together. I had just convinced myself I was. The first time I said no. My son called one night. "Dad, I messed up," he said. I waited. "I need help," he added. Just this once. Old instincts flared. The familiar pull to rescue. To step in. To smooth things over. I took a breath. "What kind of help?" I asked. He hesitated. "I don't know. I just thought you'd fix it." I closed my eyes. "I can listen," I said. "But I can't fix this for you." There was silence. Then frustration. "So that's it?" "No," I said calmly. "That's growth." He didn't like that. But neither did I the first time someone let me struggle. The moment I chose myself without apology. A few weeks later, my wife texted, "Do you ever miss us?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "I miss who I was before I disappeared." That was the truth. I missed the man who laughed easily, who rested without guilt, who loved without being drained dry. And for the first time, I didn't apologize for wanting him back. What I learned in the quiet. Here's what silence taught me. Being needed is not the same as being loved. Being useful is not the same as being valued. And sacrificing yourself doesn't make people appreciate you. It teaches them what you'll tolerate. I didn't leave to punish anyone. I left to survive. And survival isn't selfish. It's necessary. The calm before the next truth. I don't know what the future holds with my family. I don't know if things will fully heal. Some breaks leave scars that never fade. But I do know this. I am no longer invisible to myself. And that changes everything. It was early morning when I heard the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. The apartment was quiet. The city was still stretching awake. And I had just started my coffee, savoring the first sip without thinking about what anyone else needed. I opened the door. It was my brother. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes tired but serious. "Hey," he said. That was it. I stepped aside. "Come in." He followed, moving slowly, like he wasn't sure if he belonged. Maybe he didn't. He sat on the couch without asking. "I heard what happened," he said. "About your leaving, everything." I nodded. No words came immediately. Silence stretched between us. "I didn't realize," he continued. "I mean, I knew you were struggling, but I thought you'd always be there. Like you always were." That hit me hard. Not because he hadn't noticed. Because I had been there for everyone else for so long. I had forgotten to notice me. I left, I said quietly. Not because I didn't care, but because I needed to exist outside the expectations of everyone else. He nodded slowly. You really meant it, huh? Yes, I said. All those years, I was surviving for you, for them, for everyone, but not for me. He leaned back. I guess I never thought about what it was like, being you. And that's when it got real. He started talking about things I hadn't dared to think about aloud. About the way he had taken me for granted. How he'd assumed I'd always fix problems. How he never asked how I felt when I stayed late at work, when I missed events, when I was tired but smiling anyway. I listened. No interruptions. No advice. Just listening. And somewhere in that listening, the weight I had carried alone started to lift. The message that changed everything. Later that day, I received a message from my son. Can we talk? I think I understand now. I stared at it. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to run back to the old habits. But I didn't. I replied, yes, we can talk. But I'm not fixing anything for you. You have to feel it yourself. By the evening, we sat in the apartment together. He looked smaller than usual, vulnerable, and I realized he had grown too. Not because of me, but despite me. We didn't yell. We didn't cry. Not yet. We just talked. About mistakes. About pressure. About what it meant to expect someone else to carry all the weight. For hours, I spoke about my experiences, my regrets, the way I had loved quietly but fully, and how I had been invisible even in my own home. And slowly, he started to listen. The hard truth. I told him everything I had never said. I wasn't ungrateful, I said. I loved all of you enough to sacrifice. But that love became invisible because no one noticed the human behind the sacrifices. He nodded. You're saying we were wrong? He asked. Yes, I said. But more importantly, I want you to learn that noticing matters. Every day, not when something breaks. For the first time, I felt like he really understood me. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough. The beginning of change. That night, I stayed up late writing. Not letters for them. Not messages for anyone. Just writing for myself. I thought about the years I had spent being invisible. The late nights. The empty smiles. The silences that felt heavier than words. And I realized something. Leaving wasn't the end. It was the first moment I had permission to be seen. And being seen is only half the battle. The other half is choosing to keep living that truth. Because the past can come back. People can knock. They can ask for explanations, forgiveness, or even repairs. But the difference now? I don't owe them anything except honesty. The lesson I started to understand. I learned that people only value what they see. If they never take the time to look, they will never know. And the person who remains silent too long, they disappear. I wasn't ready to return. Not yet. Not until they could see me, and not just the man who always fixed things. And in that quiet realization, I found a strange kind of peace. A peace that wasn't about being loved by everyone, but about finally loving myself. It wasn't easy. Nothing that matters ever is. The first few weeks after that call with my son and the conversation with my brother were the quietest I'd experienced in years. Quiet in a way that forced reflection. Quiet that made me realize how much I had given of myself and how little I had saved. I sat alone a lot, thinking about my family, thinking about the man I had been, thinking about the man I was trying to become. It was a slow process, like watching the sun rise. You notice it happening, but you can't rush it. Reaching out carefully. The first real step back to my family wasn't dramatic. It was a text. Can we have dinner together? Just us. No arguments. No expectations. I sent it to my wife. Hours later, she replied, okay, we'll come. But it's your rules. I knew that was fair. For too long, the rules had been unspoken. They had been mine, theirs, borrowed, broken, and ignored. This time, I would set them. The dinner. When they arrived, it was strange. The house smelled the same, but everything felt different. The tension was there, yes, but it was quieter than before. Hope had a presence in the room, subtle but noticeable. We sat around the table. I had prepared simple food, not fancy, not meant to impress. Just enough for us to eat together without distractions. I started softly. I'm not here to lecture. I'm not here to demand apologies. I'm here to start over. If you're willing. My wife nodded slowly. My son and daughter exchanged looks, unsure. And then, slowly we talked. Honesty for the first time. I told them about my fears. About the exhaustion. About the months I spent questioning myself. I felt invisible. I said. And when I finally stopped showing up, the world noticed. And it scared me. Not because I left, but because I realized how much of myself I had given away. My wife's hand found mine. I didn't realize, she said. I see it now. And I'm sorry for not noticing sooner. My son swallowed hard. I didn't know either. I thought you'd always be there. My daughter looked down, voice quiet. I took you for granted. I didn't see you. Not really. Hearing them speak, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. Not complete healing, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. That was enough for now. The lesson of small steps. I realized reconciliation doesn't happen in a day. It's not a single conversation. It's not one dinner or one apology. It's slow, painful, messy, but it's worth it. Because the alternative, silence, invisibility, resentment, was a weight I could no longer carry. A new pattern. From that night, we tried something new. We listened first, not reacted. We asked questions, not assumptions. We took responsibility for ourselves, not blame each other. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. It was exactly what we needed. I started to see my wife again, not just as the partner who relied on me, but as a human being, equally flawed, equally afraid. I started seeing my children as people learning life lessons, not extensions of me, not burdens or tests of my patience. And most importantly, I saw myself. The silent promise. I didn't go back to being the man who disappeared in the background to hold everyone else up. I stayed present, but differently. I stayed aware. I stayed honest. I stayed strong, not for them, but with them. And for the first time in decades, I didn't feel like I was losing anything by being myself. Life has a funny way of testing you. Just when you think progress is steady, calm, and real, reality sneaks in and asks, how much of this is real? For us, it happened on a rainy Thursday. The emergency. It started with a phone call. My wife's voice, tense and shaky. It's your mother, she fell. I don't know what to do. Instantly, old instincts kicked in. The man I had been for years, the fixer, the provider, wanted to drop everything and run. But I stopped. I listened. I processed. Then I made a plan. I called an ambulance. I coordinated with my siblings. I stayed calm. And as I did, I realized something powerful. I could act without losing myself. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and panic. My mother was in bed, fragile, confused. My siblings hovered nervously. And somewhere in the back, I caught my reflection in the shiny hospital floor. Older, quieter, stronger. I took control of the situation, but differently than before. I didn't absorb all the stress. I didn't carry everyone's fear as my own. I delegated. I asked questions. I listened. For the first time, I realized that helping doesn't mean disappearing. The confrontation. Later, my mother's doctor pulled me aside. You've been under incredible pressure, he said. It shows in your health too. You need to take care of yourself while caring for others. Those words, spoken by a stranger, hit harder than anything my family had ever said. I thought of all the times I had ignored my own body, my own needs, my own limits, in order to make life easier for others. I saw clearly how close I had been to burning out completely. The family gathers. That night, my wife and kids stayed with me at the hospital. We sat together, waiting, quiet, reflective. My son spoke first. None of us realized how much you did for all of us. His voice broke. My daughter held his hand. We thought we were independent, but we were just blind. My wife looked at me with tears in her eyes. We see you now. All of you. Not just the man who provides, but the person you are. And I believed them. The lessons of this turning point. That night, in that quiet hospital room, I realized progress isn't measured by perfection. It's measured by acknowledgement, effort, and empathy. I had walked away to survive, to be seen, and to be heard. And in this moment, I realized survival had taught my family to see me, and maybe, slowly, they were learning to respect me. The promise to myself. I made silent promises that night. To keep boundaries without fear. To love without losing myself. To listen, guide, and support, but not at the cost of my identity. I realized that being present doesn't mean being invisible, and that true family isn't about control or sacrifice. It's about honesty, respect, and space for each person to grow. Looking ahead, as we left the hospital, the rain had stopped. The air felt fresh, clean, hopeful. I looked at my family and saw small but real changes. They were listening. They were aware. They were learning. And for the first time, I felt confident, not as the man who had carried them, but as the man who had chosen himself and invited them to meet him there. I never thought I'd reach this point. After years of silence, frustration, and quiet suffering, here I was, finally feeling seen, finally feeling alive, finally understanding what it meant to love without losing yourself. The journey had been long, messy, and painful. But that's life, isn't it? Life doesn't hand you clarity on a silver platter. You earn it through heartbreak, mistakes, and courage. Looking back, I remember the nights when I stayed at my office late, staring at spreadsheets, swallowing exhaustion, pretending nothing hurt. I remember the mornings when I woke up to family demands, deadlines, and expectations, forcing myself to smile even when I felt empty. I remember the quiet moments of hope when I thought, maybe they'll notice someday. They didn't, at least not at first. And yet, I don't regret those years. They taught me patience. They taught me endurance. They taught me the value of self-worth, the power of boundaries. The hardest lesson I had to learn was simple. Boundaries aren't selfish. Walking away doesn't mean you don't love. Saying no doesn't mean you've failed. For too long, I believed my love was measured by how much I could give, how much I could fix, how much I could absorb. Now I know, real love is measured by respect. Respect for others. Respect for yourself. Without that, love is just obligation. Rebuilding connections. The conversations with my wife, my children, and even my siblings taught me another lesson. Rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. It's slow. It's careful. It requires honesty, humility, and courage. It requires acknowledging mistakes, not just theirs, but yours. And it requires listening without judgment, speaking without anger, and acting with intention. We weren't perfect that night in the hospital, nor in the weeks that followed. But we were learning. Slowly. Surely. And that was enough. Facing myself. For the first time in decades, I faced myself without apology. I admitted my exhaustion. I admitted my frustration. I admitted my pain. And I forgave myself for being human. I forgave myself for wanting more than just survival. I forgave myself for wanting to exist beyond the expectations of others. I forgave myself for loving silently, and finally, for choosing to be heard. The lesson I want to share. If there's one truth I can leave behind, it's this. You can give endlessly to those you love, but if you give at the cost of yourself, you lose everything that makes you whole. Self-sacrifice without recognition is invisible pain. Love without boundaries is exhaustion disguised as devotion. And silence teaches people to live without seeing you. It took years of being invisible for me to understand this. I hope my story reminds someone out there that it's okay to step back. It's okay to be seen. It's okay to choose yourself. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. Final thoughts. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know if my family will always understand me perfectly. I don't know if they'll ever fully grasp the depth of what I gave and the cost it had on me. But I do know this. I am here. I am seen. I am alive. And I choose myself every day. That choice has changed everything. For them. For me. For the life I am finally ready to live. Because in the end, the greatest lesson isn't about being loyal, sacrificing, or being needed. It's about being true. True to yourself. True to your life. True to the love you give. Without losing the one person who matters most. You.